Hello, welcome to Marlene Nobre Series 2026. It is a pleasure to be here once again in the studio. Today we have with us our dear friend Charles Kempf. Hello, Charles. Welcome.
Yeah. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Indeed, thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here, Charles, to talk about life's triumph. This is the second episode of the series this year. So, Charles will be doing the presentation for us, bringing a bit more of information about Dr. Nobre's work, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So, welcome to all those who are here with us in the studio and those who will see it in the future. So, for those who don't know our dear friend Charles Kempf, I'll just very briefly introduce Charles. So Charles Kempf, he's French, a retired engineer. His first contact with Spiritism was back in 1986. He works in French and international Spiritist movement since 1992. Currently, or he was actually leading the Centre d'études Spirit Léon Denis in Mulhouse, France, and that was since 1997. Not sure if you are currently leading the center, Charles. You may correct, please.
Still, yeah.
Okay. So, a member of the organizing committee of the Fourth World Spiritists Congress in Paris. That was back in 2004. So, for many years, Charles was a member of the executive committee of the International Spiritist Council and the French Spiritist Council. Member of the French-speaking Spiritist movement, General Secretary of the International Spiritist Council. That was between 2012 and 2016, and he was responsible for the International Spiritist Council coordination in Europe. That was between 2007 and 2018. Member of the writing committee of the Revue Spirit in French, member of the working group of the Spiritist Encyclopedia, former president of the French Spiritist Federation, and a very dedicated researcher on the history of Spiritism and Allan Kardec. Just briefly give you an idea of our guests for today. So it is a pleasure to welcome you here once again, Charles. You always bring something very interesting about Spiritism and the work done around it. So it is a pleasure to welcome you. So I'll pass it on to you, Charles. I'll be here in backstage. So just give me a word if you need me.
Thank you, Munir. Thanks for the invitation and for the opportunity. For this Marlene Nobre UK Series 2026, you see the program with 12 speakers along the year, organized by the British Union of Spiritist Societies and many others like Kardec Radio, Irish Federation, and so on. So I'm very happy. For me, it's a pleasure to be able to talk about a book which is called Life's Triumph. So the book has not been written by Marlene Nobre, but by her brother, which is Paolo Rossi Severino. But it was with the collaboration of the Spiritist Medical Association from São Paulo in Brazil. That was back in 1990. So Marlene and her brother, they worked together almost all their life actively in the Spiritist movement and also in making researches like this one. So I asked Elsa the permission to talk about this book, which is not from Marlene, but from her brother, Paolo Rossi, but fully approved by Marlene, who, by the way, is even co-author. But Marlene, you got already an introduction last month. She was really very active not only in Brazil, but also internationally. She founded the Spiritist Medical Association, first in São Paulo, then in Brazil, then the worldwide. Helped also to found such equivalent organization in several countries like Portugal, US, Switzerland, and so on. And she was also promoting congresses, Spiritist medical congresses, a lot of them, and also in several countries, in several languages. So it was really very encouraging, particularly for us in the French-speaking countries like France and Belgium. We did them together, and also through the fact that she was always inviting some native speakers, French speakers or Belgian speakers, to participate also to these events. And unfortunately, it stopped. The last one was presential, was in 2019, then it stopped because of the pandemic. And since it restarted, but not with the same intensity as it was before. So we are working on it, and let's see if we can come back to having this yearly event organized, which is following Marlene Nobre's ideal to promote the spiritualist paradigm of medicine, considering that the human being is a bio-socio-psycho-spiritual being, and that medicine will improve a lot when considering all these aspects together at the same time to maximize the chances for solving illnesses and to cure or promoting the health. So that's for Marlene Nobre. Continuing then, we will pass to her brother, it's Paolo Rossi Severino Nobre. He was born 1933. Marlene was born 1937, so he was 4 years older than her sister. He was their family was a Spiritist family. He was a professor, teacher. He was director of the magazine, which was promoted by the Spiritist Medical Association, which is Folia Espírita. And in 1990, then he wrote this book, Life's Triumph, which is summarizing a research done on Chico Xavier's letters. We will see then more details. Chico Xavier wrote a lot of letters to people he didn't know, with a lot of from deceased one, and with a lot of proof of identity. And so he selected some of those and made an analysis in this book. And as well as Marlene, I think, went back to the spiritual realm in 2015, and he went back 2 years later in 2017. And here you see a picture of him. The Life Triumphed is the title of the article they wrote at this opportunity. It was in March 2017. You can download these journals on the website of FE Editora Publishing, FE Publishing. They put them for download for free. Continuing, Paolo and his sister Marlene Nobre visited a lot Chico Xavier. Here you see a picture where you have Marlene and her brother together with Chico Xavier. And they had a very long-standing friendship with a medium from Minas Gerais. Remembering the book was written in 1990, so Chico was still alive. He was already 80 years old. And of course, he also approved the book and the content of it. Paolo, this is another picture. He was also very active in Cair Barshuta Spiritist Group, which was founded in 1963 by Marlene Nobre. As I said, they worked together almost their whole life. He was leading, amongst others, mediumistic meetings. And this is a quote from him: "Time is the same for everyone. It's how we use it that sets us apart." A very wise statement. He also wrote some 4 other books on top of Life's Triumphs. So you see, which was the first one, you see, Back to Reality in 1999, Path to Liberation in 2002, Learning with Chico Xavier was 2013, and the last one he wrote was The Legacy of Marlene Nobre, so 1 year after she passed away and 1 year before he passed away. And entering in the book now, amongst the facts that suggest the survival of individuality after the death of the physical body is mediumship. It's always a question. Mainstream science is still skeptical about this, considers that the existence of the soul independently from the physical body is not proven yet. There are several facts which are going in the direction to prove that we have a soul and that this soul with its individuality survives to the bodily death. And in them, there is the mediumship. So this book is exactly about this, showing through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, through the example of those letters, how many evidences we can find about survival of the soul and its individuality with the so-called proofs of identity given in the communications. Okay. And the most remarkable aspect of the communications transmitted through Chico Xavier mediumship is the accuracy and fidelity of the information provided by the deceased, including identification of friends, of relatives, of both living and deceased, who were part of the communicating entity's life. Furthermore, in some cases, we can also observe the use of familiar phrases and even slang expressions he used before his death. Numerous other signs of authenticity are noted in the cases studied in this book. So we will see this a little bit more in detail. And Chico was really, I would say, very exceptional medium, allowing to transmit this type of evidences. Here you have the cover page of the book. So the book is translated into English. I think it is also edited by FE Publishing. And it exists also in electronic version. I think it's in the Spiritist Alliance for Book, which is in New York. And in the book, then, the author, Paolo Rossi, and his colleagues, amongst which Marlene, analyzed the messages of Chico Xavier and the information they contain, following a rigorous procedure. We will see also the procedures they followed. Their questionnaires, prepared effectively, allowed for the collection of important elements and data and enabled comparative analysis, revealing objective and highly interesting details about the facts that the author meticulously gathered. So from the messages, he selected some, and then he made a really deep, detailed inquiry with relative, the member of the family of the deceased, which received those letters from Chico Xavier. The author and his colleagues, yes, sorry, this is double. The researchers started in 1974 on nearly 200 cases from the thousands of messages received since 1930 by Chico Xavier, and 45 have been selected for this book. So Chico Xavier started mediumship in 1930, even a little bit before, writing mostly books and so on. But these letters, this type of letters, he started only after quite some long experience. Why? It was, I would say, a criteria applied by his mentor, Emmanuel, who preferred having him already recognized for the books he did, and also showing his way of life, simplicity, humility, disinterestedness, in order to avoid any type of problem with this type of activity, because what we see nowadays is a little bit more painful, because you have a lot of people who say pretending being mediums, who are writing such letters, but unfortunately nowadays it's much more difficult. Why? Because I mean, when you make some researches, some searches on the social media and so on, you can find a lot of information about the deceased persons. And then it's much more difficult to prove the identity of the communicating spirit. And it's also a door open to a lot of, how to say it, frauds. And this unfortunately happened. And exploring people which are grieving, which is something which is ethically highly questionable. But at the time of Chico, there were no social media, and so the information was also much more difficult to find. So the authenticity of the messages could be put much stronger in evidence. But of course, nowadays the protocol should be changed or adopted, provided it is even possible to do such type of works nowadays with the speed the information is going around the earth in our times. And amongst the evidences revealed by the details given in the messages, much was often unknown to the communicator's family itself. So here we can, I mean, when you look the researchers in parapsychology, the first objection they can do is, hey, 1,000 messages and he selected only 45. So there is a publication bias, you know. You publish only the messages where there is a lot of good information which goes in the way you want to demonstrate. Maybe, but we will see later on that this objection is not valid because even with only 45 messages, the evidence which are given in there are really very, very strong. And the second objection that comes generally from the parapsychology is Chico has the capacity to read in the mind of the other people through telepathic process or something like this. But this also is much harder when the family itself does not know an information that came in the letter of Chico Xavier. So to explain that in another way than the given entity for the deceased individuality communicating that information is indeed very much more difficult. Okay. So Chico Xavier made this type of work generally, but not only, in public sessions that were held in Uberaba. At that time, he was already living in Uberaba. There were twice two public sessions a week until 1987, when he got much older and could not keep the same rhythm anymore. And it was one of those was on Friday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. He spoke to about 60 people, one at a time, during about 5 minutes each, where the person stated the name as well as the name of the deceased friends or relative and made a brief comment. So it was a very short interview of these people, and most of these people who came for the first time. He didn't know those people, so people didn't know him, and he even didn't know that this person were coming that day. It was first come, first serve, so there was a queue, and he could attend the 61st one who came. And when the consultation time was over, this first 4-hour time, in another room of the house and under the direction of the spiritual mentor, Chico wrote prescription for the sick people who had left their names, and he wrote also these letters. And this activity usually lasted until midnight or even a little bit later. So you see, from 2 p.m. until midnight. So it was really requiring a lot of efforts from Chico, and that's one of the reasons why he stopped in 1987. Continuing, at the end of this period, the medium would return to the main room of the house where the participants discussed themes related to spiritist teachings, always trying to maintain the spiritual harmony in of the place. And then came the time to receive the messages from their spirit guides and deceased family members. On several occasions, this activity lasted until early in the morning of the next day. So it was really a kind of a marathon session. And this happened in the presence of 200 to 300 people each night. The medium removed his glasses, covers his eyes, which is typical, as you can see on the pictures, and was receiving the messages. His comment is that the messages came through a kind of a mechanic mediumship. So he was writing mechanically without being aware of what he was writing. And like this, you saw it's every 5 or 6 seconds another page going very quickly, as we can see it also from Chico Xavier movies, which are still existing today. So this is then when he got the messages and amongst others those letters. Okay. Continuing, once the messages are received, the center's president calls out the name of the person to whom the message is addressed, which was generally written on the top of the message, and remains standing next to the table while Chico Xavier reads the letter. So he was reading the letter in front of the addressees and also in front of the other people who were there in the room. And so Chico Xavier had no prior knowledge of the content of the messages when written in his through his own hand. As I told, it was a mechanical mediumship, which where the medium is writing something without being absolutely aware of about what he's writing. Okay. What are the alternative explanations? So I talked already about the biases. Now that you see the phenomenon, how it happened during several decades. One alternative explanation is premeditated or unconscious fraud. But this is absolutely not in line with Chico's personality. He was really modest, simple, personally and financially disinterested, so selflessness, which were qualities of his personality. So he had absolutely no interest or no motivation at all to make a premeditated fraud, and also not an unconscious fraud. This comes out from the way he was writing the messages. Okay. Other alternative explanation could be direct information of cryptomnesia. So at that time, there was no internet, no social media. Chico did not know the people in most cases who came to him. They came without appointment, without anything. These messages were received during public seance, and in most cases, those who received them were ordinary citizens whose lives had never been shared in the news, in the media or newspaper. There was also an average delay of 8 hours only between the time each individual consulted the medium and the time the messages were received. So there was no time to make searches or whatever. And sometimes also the messages were containing information unknown to the family of the deceased. So this alternative explanation, cryptomnesia or direct information, also cannot explain the phenomenon. Extrasensory perception, also not very easy, when we see the difficulty of establish a telepathic link between some people. Here the people came for the first time. You know, for telepathy, you need to have an emitter and a sender and a receiver. And these people who came didn't even know about mediumship or telepathy or nothing like this. So It also cannot be advanced as a valid explanation. And the last one is the automatic writing mediumship. This is really the simplest and most plausible to explain the diversity of the facts described. And it is then what happened at the automatic writing mediumship. So quickly about the methodology used for this study. A questionnaire has been created through the whole persons who participate to the study. And then they did face-to-face interviews. So they were looking for the people and the family who received the messages, making copy of the messages, and then interviewing, making a lot of questions to those persons. So the interview was lasting an average of 3 hours, and to gather the testimonies of the people involved and to complete the questionnaire. And in this, of course, the researcher tried to be as neutral as possible in asking the question in order to influence them as less as possible. Then you have also the documentation, photos, photocopy of the messages, and then any other document giving evidences about the content of the message. Phrases used in their daily conversation, document bearing the signature of the deceased to see if the signature matches or not, and so on. So in order to that you can have a better idea about what are these type of messages, I will present one. So out of the 45, I selected the second one, case number 2, which is the case of Jair Presente. So you see the name, the age, when he died, the father's name, the mother's name, and the date and place of birth. So this one died November 10, 1949 in Campinas, São Paulo. Was born and died February 3rd, 1974 in Americana, São Paulo. And he died by drowning. Okay. So I will go quite quickly through the message without commenting a lot, otherwise it would be too long. So this is first the comment of the researchers. They said, we were in the city of Campinas with Dr. João Moises Abujadi, visiting, so two researchers visiting the Presente family. Sueli, the communicator's sister, painted a portrait of the deceased. He was the leader. All his friends always invited him to various events, and he never went anywhere without him. Wherever he was, he radiated joy. He had a cheerful and athletic spirit. No matter the circumstances, his personality dominated the surroundings. He always found time for everything. It was as if he were made of iron. He was never tired or sick. He went to school, worked as a tutor, gave lessons, and was never isolated from his friends. He had a kind heart when he was tutoring. If someone couldn't pay for their lessons, he would give them anyway. So you see, Jair was young, so he passed away with 24, and was here you have the description done by his sister. We wanted to know more about the searches that had taken place at the cemetery in order to confirm the name mentioned by Chico Xavier in a message dated July 19, 1975. So you can see here he died February 3rd, 1974, and the message is from July 19, 1975, so a little bit more than 1 year later. And you will see in the message there is one information where Jair, the deceased one, said through Chico Xavier, and another friend is here beside me, Ireneu Leite da Silva, a good guy who put on his wooden suit, which is the expression he used for the coffin, on June 7 of the previous year. It was I was among those working at Flamboyant Park when he died. So he was still alive. He woke up amongst us and he was fine. The name mentioned was unknown to the present family, so they didn't know that he had a friend with this name. And there were no relatives or acquaintances of the young man in Uberaba, the city where the message had been received. So Uberaba is in Minas Gerais state, and this one was in well, I don't see the city yet, but it was in another city. Okay, and one of the this is an information who came through Chico Xavier in the letter, indicating the city and the cemetery. Sueli decided to find out, so his sister, surviving sister, decided to find out who this person was. So she called Mr. Renato Mangiaterra, the cemetery administrator, but he told her that the name Ireneo Leite da Silva was not recorded in his book. So apparently, the first reaction of Sueli was the information in the letter is mistaken. So, but she even so continued her searches and went to the archives of the local newspaper, Correio Populas, where she found the newspaper with the obituary of Ireneo's death caused by a car accident. So she found that, okay, in the cemetery she didn't find it, but in the newspaper she found it. She then returned to the cemetery and insisted that Mr. Mangiaterra checks the records, which he finally agreed to do. She subsequently discovered that the deceased had been registered in the cemetery records under the name Pireneo instead of Ireneo, an error that had caused all the confusion and misunderstanding. So you see, it's a detail, so ignored by the family. They didn't even ignore that this guy existed, and much less they ignored that he was died at that moment, and also registered with a mistake in the cemetery. So this is really a very strong proof of identity that appears in this letter, okay, and which could then be clarified through the later investigation. So again, the same, I mean, Chico Xavier, how could Chico Xavier know that there was a wrong register in the cemetery? And he even did not visit that city, and he didn't even know the people who came, this family present, it was not known to him, okay? So Dr. Mario Boari Tamasia, a writer and journalist, personally went to the cemetery with Sueli, and they confirmed that the information given in the message received by Chico Xavier was correct. The date mentioned in the message, the name of the deceased, and the correct cemetery where the burial took place amongst the city's 3 cemeteries were all accurate. All these facts undoubtedly give us food for thought, indeed. Well, now let's come to the message. And again, this is one, but the book is composed of 44 or 45 such similar messages. Okay. So, my dear mother, father, and you, Sueli, we are all here, and I don't want to begin this discussion without offering God, our Creator, our utmost respect. So he was a believer, at least after passing away. Yeah? If you are there, it's because you desire the comfort of a family conversation, and in my mind, the memories are flooding back. I can't remain silent any longer. I need to talk, and those here allow me to use this good old slang. Yeah, so even with some words which were typical of his language whilst he was alive. And again, Chico Xavier had absolutely no clue, didn't know neither this Jair presented nor the family. Sometimes I tell myself I should stop clinging to these beliefs about smiling ghosts, but this life is mine, and how could I ever stop being myself in life? In that sense, my limited knowledge is better today. I'm engaging in studies to clear out all the nonsense I have in my head. I want to start anew, and here's the thing. If I don't work, I won't understand. If I don't understand, there is no point in studying. Again, typical style of when he was alive. When I first came here, I realized I was nothing more than a fool, having learned only stupid things without any limits. Now I'm improving. There are lessons I need to put into practice to become a better person. Many of my friends who are still alive think I'm a lost soul in another world. Poor fools that we were, trying to invent meaning for life, we only complicated the meaning of the best teachings we were given. So this also clearly indicates that his ideas about what happens after life were quite different whilst he was alive from what he discovered after passing away. However, the things that truly matter to God are feelings. The heart is the part that speaks. I could give you my news in a very sophisticated way, but if I'm not sincere, I'll be mistaken. And I don't want that, and I don't want that anymore. I want to have a clear mind so I can communicate using the right words and no more slang. When you come here, you'll see how difficult it is to cross the goal line. Here means passing away. How difficult it is to cross a goal line and become a ball, a football expression to describe how he feels in the other dimension. That's why you can forgive all the hairy guys who come here unprepared and grimace when they hear the teachings of Christ. And please forgive us, yes, because it would be very difficult for me to speak French with Brazilian Portuguese, trying to demonstrate qualities I don't possess. There is, however, one thing you can be sure of. I already know that working for the benefit of the others is the best way of life, best way to life. I say this even though I still feel the same as I did in geography class when I explained to the teacher how to get to Guyana, even though I'd never been there. I know there is progress. I am willing to do what I know tomorrow. So we don't know here exactly if he was really explaining this to his professor of geography when he was at school, or if it was just an image, but okay. Let's continue. Despite everything I tell you, Sueli, the purpose of mediumship is to serve so that we may be served. We all need something when we reach out to help those who are suffering. It's like receiving other hands from above to carry us through our daily lives. For me, charity is the best thing in life. We help and receive more than we gave. Generally, my dear sister, we are all here to serve, but the person who has been served is represented by a large group, and this large group comes to our side and helps us considerably in our lives. Here I see many people who are no longer on this earth and who are learning this lesson. Offer benefits and receive even more. I'm not teaching you to flatter God with beautiful words or to be religious. I'm simply telling you that the most important thing is action. So you see here he's giving some hints and some advices because his sister and his parents, which were moving and desperate and so on, you see, receiving from their son such encouragement to face life and to do good in life and to improve and whatsoever, coming from with the proof of identity that will come very soon, is really a high resource, highly encouraging for these people of the family to overcome the grief and to restart life with a new energy. Yeah, so that's why also we often call these messages consoling messages. Here we are. Here with me, Joãozinho Alves had a message for his parents. So Joãozinho Alves is a friend or whatsoever. Chico didn't know, and the family confirmed, yes, we know perfectly who it is. He is better and stronger. And another friend beside me is Ireneo Leite da Silva. This is what we have seen at the beginning, a good guy who was put in his wooden suit on June 7th. It was among the people working at Flamboyant Park when his death was announced. He woke up amongst us and is doing well. Even so, he asked for prayer from his parents, Sergio and Rita, and urges all his loved ones to remain calm. So here it was an unknown guy who gave also the name of the father and name of the mother. You know, if we imagine to give a name by chance and fall on the right name, considering that particularly in Brazil there are thousands of names, the probability is very low. And here it was not only one, it's 1, 2, 3 names, and all the names are 100% correct. So again, this is also very strong evidence for the of the individuality of Jair Presente communicating to Chico Xavier, because all this, of course, was unknown by him, by the medium. After all, this thing called death happens to anyone, and everyone in the world has to deal with it, even though they wish no one would ever die. We, on the other hand, would like all our brothers and sisters around the world to go to plastic surgery clinics, laughing at the wrinkles that appear year after year. We hope everyone arrives here in old age without looking at solemn photos from 20 or 40 years ago. You see, he's even ironic in the message. This encounter with death is a bitter striptease. I say bitter because the way we deal with this subject with so many tears makes the last day so painful that it could frighten anyone. So here is de-dramatizing what was the so-called death. Let us think about the death with faith in God. After all, out here in the world, the one who sleeps is like the dead who come back to life every morning, each morning. So when you go to sleep, it's like a death, and when we wake up, we go back to life. And this is indeed what happens with all of us daily, even we are not aware of it. That gives Sergio and Wilson, you see, 2 more names, which are 100% correct. All my friends and classmates a hug. I don't think the guys really believe what I say. Even every now and then, I hear one of them say, but this Jair guy is a hopeless case, isn't he? That's gross nonsense. The one who has the power to make us better and to heal us is this good and loving Christ who is with us every day. But if I were the one who had stayed on earth, maybe I wouldn't have believed my dead friend's message. And yet I would have become more alive if I had listened to the message of those who left earth before me. So here is showing very clearly that the best message with the best evidences is not always convincing, and this is also true. And it needs really some more evidences, like the names and all what you have seen here, the details of this message, and the family feeling really the way and the characteristics of the personality of the deceased son or brother. Then, of course, it's much stronger, and for them, it's probably a U-turn, 180-degree changes in their way to see life and also survival of the soul after life. It's a subjective proof. That's always a difficulty for this type of phenomenology. A lot of times it's subjective, albeit here we have a lot of elements that can be objectivated and checked. But then when you talk to someone else may laugh or smile and I'm happy for you, but for me it doesn't convince anything. And that's exactly the added value of this book, where they came in order to see objective information and making the cross-check whether it was known or unknown or confirmed or not confirmed. And you will see the results later on of the analysis of these messages. Sueli, please convey my thanks to the heart of Grameru, again another name. My sincere thanks also to the members of the May group who prayed for everyone's happiness. It's time for me to stop now. I've said what I couldn't say. I was homesick. I'm talking with you, and I'm glad I was able to chat. May God forgive me. That's all I ask. However, let's put seriousness aside and end with a hug. Dad, Mom, Shirley, I'm happy to see you all together. Bye to you all. Good luck. May every night and every hour bring to you blessings. A big kiss from your grateful son and brother, who offers you the greatest love in the world on these pages. And a signature is signed by Jair. So this gives you an idea of the type of message, of the accuracy, the specificity of the information given, and as per the description of how this happened, and with so many people in such a short time, and with people with the medium having absolutely no knowledge about the people who came to visit him in most of the cases. So Chico wrote thousands of similar messages. Of course, they could not find out all of them. They found, as we have seen, 200 and selected 45. But there is a movie which has been done showing the benefits of this type of letters and this work done by Chico Xavier. And this movie is this one you can see, The Mothers of Chico Xavier. I think it's available on YouTube. It's also with subtitles in English if you want to look at it. And there you will see other cases, other examples of people who were desperate, really inconsolable, at the limit of taking their life, and who, after such a message with Chico Xavier, changed it completely in a very highly positive way. So we can see here, I'm not a psychologist, but what is important is the effect. You have people which are desperate, and all of a sudden, after such an event, regaining again hope in life, and even becoming better person, helping the others, and so on. So we see immediately the huge benefits from this type of work. But of course, I do not here encourage to do it without seriousness, as Chico did it. Again, because nowadays it's much more difficult. You can, the name which are named here are things that you can much easier find in social media and whatsoever. But in 1975, it was not the case. So let's see now a little bit more statistics that Paolo made based on these messages. So religion of the communicating spirit was, 62% Catholic. So, but 20% others, because in Brazil, I think it's more than 60% which are Catholic. But sometimes the Catholics are very reluctant from spiritist things because they have been told by the priest and so on that it comes from the devil. So this is maybe explaining why this percentage is a little bit less than in the average in Brazil. Then you see the religion of the person to whom the message is addressed. You see it's more or less also 48% Catholic and 44% evangelic or Protestant. So this is, I think, more in line with the average in Brazil. This one, sorry, was of the communicator, means of the spirit. And here we see, come back. That there is an increase in the spiritist. You see, there is 20% of spiritists. And this may induce that the spirits, after going back to the spiritual world, were maybe from another religion, but became spiritist, recognized by their own observation the correctness of the spiritist body of knowledge. And that's why a big part of them have changed to spiritist. Then you see the cause of death. So it's 73% accidental, but there are also some natural deaths and even people being killed or suicided. Then the time elapsed between death and communication was sometimes you see quite short, from 0 to 6 months, and some others more than 30 months. So average it was 1.5 year, as we have seen in the case we have read. The number of times the person came to see Francisco Xavier before receiving the messages. So you see, 42% came there for the first time. And then you have people who came 2 or 3 times, 4 times, or more than 5 times, because, as I told you, there were 200 people and he could attend only 60 in an interview and maybe 10 or 20 with a message, with a letter, So some people made several tries until they got their message. Okay, that is, but this, of course, the people having been there may be also an objection arisen. But amongst hundreds of people, Chico could never ever keep the memory of all these thousands of people who came to visit him. Did Francisco Xavier know the consultant before his death? So you see, 93% no, he didn't know those people. Then what is the number of reported personal events? So this objectivable piece of information, you see, said 71%, more than 3. Then you had 1 to 3, 6.7%, and 22%, there was no, 1 to 3, 22%, and none, 6.7%. So this means none means a message without anything that can be checked or objectivable. Then you have the comparison of the signatures. So most of the time, 42% it was different. 35% it was identical. So there was even the identity of the signature. Remember that it was mechanical writing. So the spirit had a more direct action on the hand of the medium. So this is why in those with mechanical writing, there are more cases with identical signatures. But again, here, Chico didn't know the signature of the people, and even so, the signature was identical in more than a third of the cases. And then you have 22% where it was similar, but not absolutely equal. Number of proven facts described in the communication. So more than 6, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, you see. Then are there any errors reported in the messaging? That is probably one of the strongest which comes out of the statistics. So it was all this objectivable part of information given in the letter were correct. There was no mistake at all. So this is really something, how to say, that cannot be explained by statistics. It's really, only one of the strongest evidence for the survival of the personality after death can bring you to such results. It's very, very difficult to find any other way to reach such level of accuracy. In this level of accuracy, so this came out of the study of Paulo, but it's not the only study. I will show some other study in a few minutes. Number of items unknown to the family. So you see, known was in 60% of the cases. Then 1 to 3 items unknown to the family was 35% of the cases. And 4 to 6 unknown items, items unknown to the family, 4 to 6 is still 4%. So you see, a very big part of the messages came with informations unknown to the families. So this, I'm here just putting an excerpt, otherwise it will be too long of the analysis. There are much other pizzas, charts, and but the one I showed is really to show how strong was this mediumship of Chico Xavier, authentical, and also the seriousness in the level of analysis done by the team in this book written by Paolo Severino. Now, I just to show you that, of course, we can discuss the protocol. The protocol was not in double blind, and it was the protocols in 1990 were not what they are today. I think particularly in modern parapsychology, the protocols have been tremendously refined. So it's one objection also that we can hear. Nevertheless, as we have seen from the results, particularly one of the last chart with 100% of the information given which is accurate, there are some other studies who has been done more recently. And here I show you one which is from 2014, October 2014, published in the magazine Explore, volume 10, issue 5, pages 300 to 308. You have the link for the website. And this study has been done a little bit in the same way, with the same principle, but with a much, much stronger methodology and description of the methodology and so on, that what Paolo did in his book. And what is the result of this study? We identified 99 items of verifiable information conveyed in these 13 letters. So they analyzed 13 letters, not 45 because the more you are distant, the more you have difficulty to find the people, because with the decades, the things that people are dying and so on. But still, they identified 13. 98% of these items were rated as clear and precise fit, and no item was rated as no fit. So you see the 100% of Paolo, here it turned into 98% plus 2. So a very similar result which came out of this study, done later, okay, but with a much more rigorous and stronger methodology. And then the team concluded that ordinary explanation for accuracy of the information, which is fraud, chance, information leakage, and cold reading, were only remotely plausible. These results seem to provide empirical support for non-reductionist theories of consciousness. So consciousness is not the product of the brain, but is somewhere else independent from the physical body who died and surviving to it. Now I show you another study, an empirical investigation of alleged mediumistic writing. Again, a case study of Chico Xavier's letter. So this study is from 2019, published in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Diseases, June 2019, pages 497 to 504. And again, all the 29 items of verifiable information conveyed on these letters were rated as clear and precise fit. The information conveyed was highly specific. For example, names, dates, specific events. 14 items, which is 48.3%, conveyed information that was also very private. So only the interested people were knowing it. So you see again, very strong confirmation of the previous study. Now, just to answer a little bit to the publication bias that I mentioned a little bit earlier, there is this other study I wanted to show, which is dated 2020, testing alleged mediumistic writing, an experimental control study. So you see the name of the authors. And they made a study with some selected mediums indicated by spiritist groups, and also some seaters now applying the double-blind protocols, or for more details, you can also refer to the study to check it. But the result of this study was negative, means the medium were not able to give this precise piece of information that were given by Chico Xavier. So this shows two things. So there is no publication bias because even negative, the study has been published. And second, Chico was really an exceptional medium in this way for doing this type of work. And another remarkable evidence provided by Chico Xavier. Why is Chico Xavier so known? Because of his first book he wrote, which is a collection of poems from Beyond the Grave. So it's, of course, in Portuguese. I mean, this is quite with poems with style of several different authors is very difficult to translate. But in this book is containing poems signed by Brazilian and Portuguese poets presenting the same style that had distinguished them during their lives. So, and this book has been written by Chico Xavier, if I remember well, in 1930s. So he was just above 20 years old, very young. And his education was quite limited, so he had absolutely no literature or poetic education. Yet the best specialist who checked this these poems, recognized very strongly the characteristics and the particularity of each of the authors. So you see, a young guy of 20 years for making by Freud an imitation of so many different styles in such a good way is also something which is hard to explain other than having the poet communicating himself the poem. And there has a study being done. It was not a study, it was an essay which they presented to the BICS competition. It was a competition for giving what is the best available evidence for survival of human consciousness and permanent bodily death. This was in August 2021. And then these three authors you can see here have made an analysis of these poems and concluded that throughout a rigorous analysis of the events and further evaluation of the possible explanation, we conclude that the survival of the human consciousness after bodily death is the most probable and simplest explanation for all the observation they gathered in this essay. And this essay has not won the first prize, which was $500,000, but they have been awarded to a price of $50,000. So this is another studies which has been made showing how strong was this mediumship of Chico Xavier and how opportune it was from Paolo Rossi to make the study at his time and to publish the book we have analyzed in this slide. So now just to conclude, coming from Frederick Myers' quote from Human Personality, his famous book, throughout history, humankind has continually striven to understand its environment and govern its own destiny. Nevertheless, there is a singular omission which, upon reflection, gives the impression of a paradox. To date, it must be acknowledged that humankind has not applied the methods of modern science to its most intrinsic problem. Does human personality involve an element that could survive the death of the physical body? So this was written very early of the last century, so 1900 or maybe a little bit before. And now we have 125 years ago later, still it's a huge battle to have scientific studying seriously all these items. Of course, we have all the parapsychologists battling and doing studies and whatever they can in order to take this phenomenon seriously and to study them in the most rigorous possible way. And even, I would even say that the parapsychologists are applying even more strict and more rigorous protocols than are applied in other sciences. And yet, this is not sufficient to convince or to bring this change of paradigm. As I remember, that was the ideal of Marlene Nobre, which we are homenageing this year with his lives, to foster and to encourage this shift of paradigm. It did not happen yet. Some are convinced, but very few. It's a minority. Majority of mainstream science is yet still following a materialistic paradigm, means nothing else exists out of the matter, or if it exists, we don't want to see it and to study it. We are studying only matter. So typically the reductionist attitude, which is not scientific attitude, as per the example given by Frederick Myers. He was from the SPR, Society for Psychical Research in London. And another one, more recent, from Michael Sabom, coming from his book Recollection of Death, Medical Investigation, 1982. To say that an idea has not yet been accepted from a scientific point of view does not mean that this idea should not at least be considered scientifically as a possible explanation for an unexplained phenomenon. For the premise of objective neutrality is what has made the scientific method such a useful investigative process. All possible hypotheses must be carefully examined before reaching a conclusion. So we also fully share this quote of Michael Sabom. And I just finished reading a book about past psychology that had been published recently in France. So, but they almost very insignificantly bring the hypothesis of the spiritualist paradigm, which means we have a soul, we are not just a physical body, and this soul survives with its individuality after bodily death. So again, even you see in parapsychology, studying the psi phenomenon, yet are very, excessively cautious, even rejecting, or at least not talking about the most simple hypothesis which can phenomenon. And this was the ideal of Marlene Nobre, and I think medicine, which was her area, is quite good, a good field for bringing this spiritualist paradigm on the table. And we see now that there are hundreds and even thousands of studies about influence of health and spirituality, of coping, of whatever. And I remember when I was talking with Marlene in the first Congress, it was in 2007, I told her, Marlene, you have hospitals operating with spiritists in Brazil. Please bring results, statistics showing, and make such studies in order to bring the evidences. And indeed, she was really initiating that. And these studies are now multiplied in the whole world. There are studies coming from Iran, from India, wherever around the world on this topic. And I think now it's a question of time, but definitively this change of paradigm will happen. And it will be for sure to the big satisfaction of Marlene Noble's spirit, who is probably with us today, hopefully. And we wish her anyhow all the best and thank her for all what she has done for us in her life. So this is the end of my presentation. I thank you a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Charles. Very nice, very interesting. And here we are. And wow, it's packed with a very nice information and evidences, of course. You reminded me of a professor from Imperial College in London. He had just come back from a viva when the student presents the work to a group of a scientist to see if he's going to get the title or not. And he was furious because once he asked his student, why have you decided to use this method? He said, oh, because it seemed to be nice, you see. And we shouldn't do that in science. We should use what we believe, our passion, and decide what what is true and what is not. We should use evidence, facts. And to study facts is very important. But when it's, the subject of our study is survival, the elements, the variables involved are so many. That's why we have so much difficulty to prove. But I think this book sheds some light. You see, they try to do in a controlled way, because to get results, you have to control your experiments to see, to have confidence in the results that you get. And when we're talking about human beings, and especially deceased ones, it becomes even more difficult. But this book is very good because it brings evidence. It gives us, ideas of the variables involved and try to shed some light. And not only this book, there are so many other books also that, contribute to, a perspective of survival, and that we carry on living, and, we bring evidence of the other side, and so on. And only those who decided to disagree with that are the ones that can contradict, or at least put aside the evidences that are there. And what we see sometimes are people denying it, or trying to take the credit from these, without bringing evidence that are at least at the same level, to say, no, this is not wrong because of this, because of that. You see, there's a problem here. Just discredit something because you don't agree with that. It's not enough. I think
Not an evidence.
Indeed. And the evidence on the other side about survival, is just growing with time. And certainly, if you can discredit, this constantly increasing amount of evidence, you see, basically it will become something that people will believe and accept and even experience, you see. So thank you very much indeed. Again, another very nice, enlightening presentation. So we're very grateful to you, Charles.
Munir, there is just we know that our dear sister Janet Duncan passed away in January, isn't it? Huh?
Yeah.
So very recently. And she also has such an experience and testimony, because she went to visit Chico Xavier. Huh? And I think that was the trigger who made her change the way she was thinking and become spiritist, and also going out of despair, because she also says she was about to take her life and so on. And then after meeting Chico and getting an evidence, and the evidence was also quite strong, because she went there, so she saw Chico 5 minutes, I'm Janet Duncan, this, that, and so on. And then at the end, she was called, and Chico asked her, but I'm here just telling, but you have the original now in the videos in the bus YouTube channel. Chico was asking her, what's your name? I'm Janet Duncan. And Chico, can you please repeat your name? Janet Duncan. And then Chico said, oh, I'm really sorry. I think there is a mistake, because this message is for Jean Annette Duncan. And that is her true name. So she almost collapsed when this happened. And, when you get such an evidence personally, it's very hard because nobody was knowing this true name she had, and Chico much less, because again, she went there, she missed a bus or whatever, and came unexpectedly without any appointment, anything, and get something like this is absolutely amazing. So it's just one more example.
Yeah, and also the book you mentioned, Parnaso de Além Túmulo, the book with the poems. The guy from the Brazilian Academy of Letters, he was the expert there and analyzed and said, if the authors of these poems are not who he says they are, this guy, Chico Xavier, deserves a seat here at the Academy. Exactly. Because to write in different styles, and he went he had only primary school, He didn't have secondary school. I think he did only 5 years of schooling, and he dropped because of his condition and family condition, financial condition, and so on. So, for a guy with his education as such, schooling, I would say, to write different poems with the characteristic of different poets, famous poets, and he said he was, he's either talking the truth, or he deserves a seat in the academy, because he can write in different styles. So yes, this
it would be good to have many other Chico Xaviers, no, and even coming to the labs and to being investigated and so on. But this is not up to us to decide, huh? And I think when I read the parapsychological studies, again, I read a book recently. There are a lot of questions they ask, for instance, about the elusivity of the phenomenon. The more you go and focus on it, the more it's escaping to you, because they do not consider enough that in a mediumistic process there are spirits involved. They have their individuality, and they have a much clearer view of what are our intentions, what are our motivations, and so on. And sometimes they have very good reasons to refrain or to give up, and so on, as well as, for instance, poltergeist phenomena or things like that are done by some spirits who maybe understand that it's not the best way to do, and they just stop doing it, So we, as spiritists, we can find some good explanation about this elusivity of the phenomenon. And indeed, it's not because it is subjective. I think this is now admitted also by the parapsychologists. You have a lot of people talking about NDEs. You cannot check what they are telling, but what you can check is, sometimes you can, sometimes there are also some objectivable information they give. But what can be observed is they, before and after this experience, they are completely different. The psychological changes before and after the event. And it's not because it's not repeatable, because it's subjective, that it's not real. Subjective experiences, particularly when they are multiplying with some point of similarity, like the book of Raymond Moody in the 70s, cannot be ignored anymore. It's part of the reality. And I think even the scientific protocols have to be adapted in order to consider all these factors: subjectivity of the experiencer and subjectivity of the other intelligences which are involved in the phenomenon. And for this, I think that this area, Marlene was quite, I remember when we were discussing this type of subjects, she was fully aware of it and made really a remarkable work in her area, medicine, on this subject. And there are more and more now, not only by people from his team, but worldwide, publishing on this subject. So at a given point in time, you can put a dam to block the water, but if you don't release at a given point in time, the water will go over the dam, and you have no way to hold it anymore. And I think the change will end up coming. That's almost sure.
Yeah, and we also shouldn't forget, because you mentioned we rely on spirits for the phenomenon, but also mediums. You see, and why Chico Xavier produced so much reliable evidence, because he was a good medium in the sense of making the effort, or being a good instrument. You see,
money involved.
Yeah,
this
no
is
money
also very
involved,
fundamental.
and you mentioned
credit doesn't work in the spiritual world.
Yeah, indeed. So also the importance of becoming a very good instrument. You see, and but the evidences are here, and we have to review our methodology when dealing with this type of a phenomenon. We can't just deal with it in the same way that we deal with inert matter, for instance, to reproduce the experiments. And that's why psychology.
Exactly.
Yeah, and psychology and psychiatry, they are now, developing the methodology, which I believe, will be applied to even more cases in the future.
More and more coming to it. No? Albeit psychiatry is again very going heavily in the chemicals. Huh?
But, indeed, but yeah. Good, Charles. Thank you so much once again. And before we finish, I'll just make some announcements here very, very quickly. So next month, we will have on the series here with us, Giulio Di Carvalho. He'll be talking about the work, The Soul of Matter. And that will be on the 1st of March, same time, 7 p.m. GMT. 1st of March is the first Sunday of March. So please be with us, or if you can, try to watch it later. Or again, another work by Dr. Marlene Nobre, which is going to be digested and presented to us here by Giulio Di Carvalho. We invite you also to our study. We have a study of the Mediums book, this beautiful, beautiful book by Allan Kardec, talking about mediumship. It is an online study every Saturday, 10:30 a.m. And the coordinators are Charles Kempf, who's here with us, myself, and Guilherme Dias. It's open to everyone. Please join us. You have here the Zoom ID and the passcode to join us. We also hold a study of the book Genesis by Allan Kardec every Wednesday, 12 noon UK time. You also have the ID and passcode here to join us. Please do so. You are most welcome. And if you can't join us in those two occasions, please, the Spiritist Society of London holds a study of the book Heaven and Hell, also by Allan Kardec, and followed by the study of the Gospel according to Spiritism, 7 p.m. London time. And again, you have the ID and the passcode for Zoom platform. And finally, we want to thank Kardec Radio, our friends from Kardec Radio, our partner Kardec Radio, who provides us the necessary instruments to bring to you this series every first Sunday of the month. So thank you very much indeed to our friends from Kardec Radio. So we want to thank you for being here with us. Charles, if you have some final words, please.
Thanks a lot for having me and for this opportunity. And I hope I gave you some motivation in order to look a little bit closer to this work, this life's triumph, and to the evidences in it, and also recognizing the huge work done by our sister Marlene. Thanks to all, and God bless.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you all. Hope to see you all on the 1st of March. For now, bye-bye.
See you.